The All Blacks v Australia. Bledisloe won.
Bledisloe won.
It's an exciting fixture. It's going to be at Sky Stadium, aka the Cake Tin, and your favourite place in the world.
God, I think it's an awful stadium, I must say.
But it's going to be
not just because Ireland were pumped there in the World Cup quarter final back in 2011.
Yeah, it's just a bit big.
I never liked it. Don't think there's a great atmosphere in there, and the wind is hurt. It's a cricket ground. I don't love cricket grounds as rugby grounds.
Yeah.
And you know what? The All Blacks don't have nearly as good a record there as they do in Eden Park. So I think there's something to it.
That's probably, well, food for thought, because the Aussies will definitely fancy their chances going down there. It's going to take place on Sunday morning. That's 4 p.m. BST, which
British time.
That's our time.
For our time, we're 4 a.m. In the morning, which I guess is mid-afternoon over in New Zealand on Sunday, which is not the kindest of time slots. But listen, we'll find a way to watch it. And
for sure.
Through thick or thin, we'll be watching that one.
Absolutely. And like the ref and teams are to be confirmed yet as we shoot this.
Yes.
We haven't got them just yet, but there's kind of more important things, because this is their first fixture for them of the whole calendar year, and both under new coaching tickets as well. So it's very fresh.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a whole new look, and it's for Australia in particular have gone with a raft of new players in their squad. I think 16 new players were announced in their original 40 man squad.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be a lot of new faces, a lot of fresh blood, a lot of guys in the team who haven't had the sort of horrific recent memory of being pumped by New Zealand. I mean, that's one of the other dynamics. I mean, I was reading up on this pre-match, and I think there was a stat that New Zealand, in terms of Bledisloe dominance in the last World Cup cycle, they were averaging, I think, more than 5 tries a game against Australia, just on average.
35 points.
I mean, they had some massive wins in that. Yeah. But prior to this World Cup cycle, since the Pro era, it had only ever been 3.
Yeah.
Even as New Zealand, I think between 2015 and 2019, arguably sort of lost their way a little bit, and certainly weren't the same force in last year's World Cup as they were 4 years ago when they were all conquering.
Sure.
Even in that era, the gap between themselves and the Wallabies has only widened.
Yeah.
So they bring sort of that, into this, and this is a young Wallabies team. The other thing is that this is the first of 4 games that these two teams will play.
4 Bledisloe tests this year.
Like you're talking about a young Wallabies team coming into a season. They have sort of the worst luck, arguably, of any side in Test rugby, in that they're going to have to play the All Blacks 4 times. I mean, trial by fire.
It is trial by fire, but they definitely need to find something. And like both of these countries, both obviously had their own domestic competitions. Both of them have gone completely through and reached their climax as well. We've had Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU.
Yes.
So they're not as ring rusty as we expect some of the South African teams to be. These guys have gone through a whole domestic season and are now ready for international rugby. So it's teed up for them to kind of pick from this big squad and try and pick a new team going forward. It's the start of a new World Cup cycle, so there is freshness there all over. And obviously there are those bad memories, and the All Blacks have obviously got the better of it over the last 4+ years for a long old time. But there's a lot of youth in Australia, and a lot of people, as you say, not quite as scarred by those bitter memories. So hopefully they'll be able to kind of hit the ground running and make a good
show
game.
No fear. Show no fear. That's the hope.
That's what you want from
you. But we're going to take a quick look just sort of in the broader context of both of these teams before we get into the meat of the match itself. What are we going to be looking at? I mean, we have the All Blacks under Ian Foster first time, and we have the Wallabies under Dave Rennie first time. Loads of fresh faces. What are the teams going to look like? Who would we like to see in there? And how what are both coaches looking to get out of this game and this weekend as well? So we'll start by just taking a look at Ian Foster's All Blacks.
Sure.
Now the last we saw of the All Blacks, they were sort of eviscerated and destroyed by England in a World Cup semi-final, and it was the climax of a curious enough era for them. Like, they didn't win the Rugby Championship in 2019 either. I don't believe they're currently champions of anything except Bledisloe.
That's probably true.
Which isn't like them.
No,
which
it's unusual.
But so you have an All Black team coming into it like that, who really, and we sort of have a broader sort of analysis of this, that it sort of started changing. The All Black, the all-imperious offensive masterclass that was the All Blacks, started shifting during the 2017 Lions tour. And they started towards the tail end of Steve Hansen's coaching tenure becoming a bit more reactive instead of sort of proactive. They weren't making the games their own shape. They were sort of responding to what their opponents were doing. They were trying to sort of brush up on their ability to win games in multiple ways. Like, can we grind out a result here against this other top team because there might not be as much open space, as opposed to the sort of, you know, gleeful just batting away of everybody in their
well,
in their way.
In the run up to 2015 they were definitely all skill based,
and they never changed their game for anybody.
They tried to make it all about tries, all about speed.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'd have to try and hang with that. Whereas, there's definitely they became a bit more.
This time last year, you had Bowden Barrett trying drop kicks, and everyone was trying drop kicks, and it was all just getting a bit more tight. Than that bad loss to Ireland in 2018 as well. And so they came into that World Cup. They rectified some things, but ultimately they weren't quite the powerhouse that they had been. And I think that's really what they're going to have to try to rediscover.
Sure.
So I think they need to be sort of true to themselves, always looking for space, always attacking tries. It's what they're best at.
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, if you look at the playing pool that they have to deal with, there's just oodles of potential there.
Yes.
They had a couple of questions to answer in terms of the centre partnership and the back row. I think in particular were two areas that you had looked at and said, like,
yeah, I think in the context of that World Cup team, the team that went to the semi-final and ultimately got third in last year's World Cup, I think the back row and the centres were the two areas where you would really cite a major difference in terms of cohesion versus the 2015 or even the 2011 variety of All Blacks. They were a bit unsettled and unsure of themselves in those areas. And they have new options there. Like for one, I'm excited to see Rico at 13 in that centre jersey. He has so much speed. He'll offer them something a little different from that 13 channel, which will probably suit the way we want to see the All Blacks play with that verve and speed.
Yes.
So that's obviously
he was super on D as well from that channel.
He was. Well, like in Super Rugby Aotearoa, we saw a lot of these guys, and the standard was very, very high from week one in that competition. It was very competitive, and a few guys stepped up, including Rico for the Blues, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And he was great again in the North v South game. So I do think he's a front runner for that jersey. But there's a few wee question marks. What I've done here is just sort of pick the All Blacks team that I'd love to see take the field, and we don't quite know who Ian Foster is going to go with. I think he's naming his team on Friday,
right?
So we'll know then. But in terms of what I'm hoping to see, some of these seem likely, and some of them, might be a bit surprising. I think this is sort of the first team that I would pick at the moment on form. At loosehead, you got Joe Moody,
the stalwart,
ever present. Solid without being spectacular is how I describe him.
Well, they don't tend to scrum for penalties though. They scrum for solidity and launching.
Yeah, and he's sort of a workhorse in that, and just keep the penalties down. And he's a very solid international loosehead.
True.
Cody Taylor at hooker, incumbent. Awesome player.
Yeah.
Don't think Dane Coles has done enough this year to.
I think he's nursing a little bit of a tweak. They said, I was reading that as well. Dane Coles, like, he's still just available for selection, but I'd imagine they'll go with Cody Taylor because of that as well.
Yes, yeah. At tight head, I think it's time for Ofa Tuangafasi, who was playing for the Blues this year, scrumming like he was really, really good in the scrum, and it's an area of slight concern just in this game even, but because the Wallabies have been sort of quietly working away in the background, getting pretty decent scrummagers.
Sure,
so they don't want to be caught napping by then. They've obviously got Springbok games to come. I think Tuangafasi's best tight head scrummager in New Zealand easily, and I think he's actually a very useful unit around the pitch as well. His hands have gotten better. He's great. He gets around the field, carries really well, works every minute he's on the pitch. He works. So I'm a big Tuangafasi fan. Second rows, Patrick Tuipulotu. Has to be in there for me.
He's been awesome,
with Sam Whitelock.
He was very close to busting out in the run up to the World Cup as well. He showed some great form, I thought.
Yeah, he I think this season he might have even taken it to another level. I mean, ever since he burst on a few years ago, it's sort of been he never really been able to get a foot in against Retallick and Whitelock. And then when you had Scott Barrett coming in, it just looked like it was going to leave him behind. But he's been so good this year.
Yes.
So I think
part of a very physical pack, a very physical fresh pack.
Yeah, and using that physicality and being a leader. He's been picked as captain a few times. I believe he was captain of one of the sides in the North-South game.
Yes, I think he was.
So he's just really, really physical, useful operator. And I just think this tight five now with him and Tuangafasi in particular just has a lot more heft and bulk to it and can bully teams as well.
For sure.
But they all have been playing super quick attacking rugby, and they're able to get around the field. So I'm excited about
balance.
that. Yeah. Then in with him, Sam Whitelock ever present, not going anywhere. I don't think. The back row is an interesting one.
There's a lot of options.
There's so many options. I think like Sam Kane is captain.
Yes,
he's been picked in at 7. And to be fair to him, in a floundering Chiefs, he's been the best part of them. Whenever he's played, he's been excellent.
Yeah.
And I think that the breakdown is going to be a jungle in this game as well.
For sure.
So I think having Sam Cane out there is undeniably a decent call.
Useful asset.
Then you have Shannon Frizzell.
He's been playing very well all season, but he's not the only one.
Yeah, and so for me, like, I was a big fan of Satutu during the Blues game. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he looked like he was the next big thing at number 8. I don't love Artie Sevilla as a number 8. I don't think he quite is physical.
I prefer him as a number 6.
I like him as a number 6. You have sort of the 2-7 dynamic going on, and then with the big hefty guy at number 8. So I don't know which way they're going to go with that, but I went Artie at 6 and Satutu at 8, and then you have to mention Papali'i as well.
Yeah, Dalton Papali'i has had a phenomenal season as well. There's just their cup runneth over as far as talent in so many areas. We were citing the back row as a potential weakness going into that last year. A lot of them have stepped up. A lot of these young guys have stepped up, and when you think there are a few guys who have even stepped down and retired, it's amazing to see the conveyor belt. So I don't know. I think I was reading one All Black article that suggests maybe Frizzell will get the nod, and they'll be unleashing Satutu off the bench potentially. Yeah. I don't know. They both have their benefits and drawbacks. I think Satutu has really put his hand up as the heir apparent to Kieran Reid, who is obviously a big hole. There's a big Kieran shaped hole, and if you go with Ioane at 8 instead, it's a very different. Like he can't really do the same kind of game that Kieran Reid used to bring them, which is namely getting with
8. Sorry, if you go with
Artie. Artie at 8. He's a bit more of a ball runner. He'll be better in the tight. But I think what they really want their number 8 doing is being a distributor out wide, which Satutu is excellent at.
Yeah.
Kieran Reid gave them in their pump. Kieran Reid gave them a lot of that.
Was Satutu? I remember there was one game for the Blues where Satutu, I think, set up a try with a skip pass off the left hand.
Yes,
that was just.
But I think it was the North-South game where he rode 3 tackles in the wide channels, got the hand free, and offloaded on the inside to the scrummy, and that's an All Black try all over. Is exactly that. Dane Coles does it in the wide channel for them as well. He's just a really good operator, and he seems to fit the mold as an All Black. So whether it's off the bench or starting, I expect to see.
He was my number 1 person I was excited about from Super Rugby, and that's saying a lot because the backs are to come. I think at halfback it's still Aaron Smith. I think he's comfortably the best 9 in the world. Even playing for like Manawatu in the Mitre 10, he's showing that like he's such a difference maker. He's spooky good at passing.
His
and
speed and accuracy is right. And his box kicking's got better over the last few years as well. They don't go to it as often as other teams, but he can execute very well. What's interesting I find is between him and TJ there's a 10 kg difference, 10 kilo difference between the two, and you can kind of see it in their style of play, and it's kind of a like if you want your scrummy to be combative, make tackles, get into the odd breakdown and spoil it, TJ's your man. But if you want the crisp kind of accuracy and the tempo, the trademark tempo, it's going to be Aaron Smith.
I think first game of the season, Aaron Smith is to be thrown in there. Don't sleep on the third scrummy in the squad, Brad Weber, either.
He's been brilliant.
He's a super player. He's not going to weaken them if they chuck him in, and you know, they've got many games this season. They'll be trying many combinations. With Aaron and TJ, they know exactly what they're getting. They've been bringing it for years. So it wouldn't be the most crazy thing in the world to see Brad Weber come in, would be at this game or one of the games.
They'll give him minutes. He's earned it as well. He's been brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Outside of him, I think there's lots of talk about Moanga versus Barrett. For me, now this is where God knows what they'll do. They have so many options, the back line. I can see so many possibilities. I can see Jordy Barrett. A lot of talk about Jordy Barrett has to be in. I've actually left him out of this team. That goes to show sort of what kind of depth they have. But I just think actually in terms of getting All Blacks back to being All Blacks, they're sort of more useful players. So I think Moanga, after that performance for the Crusaders, you talk about that awesome hustle play against the Blues in that game that turned it around and arguably won Super Rugby Aotearoa for themselves right there. Moanga with that comeback, the little quick restart, gather, go. He's got
clutch in spades.
He's got clutch in spades. He's a world class 10 and he can't be dropped right now. Beauden Barrett then I think is also like one of the best players in the world. He doesn't go anywhere, so I think they play both. I think it's Moanga and Beauden, which is what they were doing last year. Which is great. It was not the problem.
It wasn't the problem. It was cited as the problem, but it wasn't really the problem. No. Centres more so. Centres, there's a question mark over. And there's things you could pick. Obviously, Braden Enord was a casualty of the North-South game. Fantastic game that it was. NR went down early, so he's no longer playing. Laumape has been called up late to fill his kind of role as a centre. I don't know if he's quite in the running for that jersey.
He's still nursing an arm injury as well, so I don't think
it'll happen this week. He's obviously an option, but I think Jack Goodhue is who you went for at 12.
That's right.
And there's a lot of potential. He switched there obviously to accommodate NR in the Crusaders this year. They were imperious again. He's grown he was brilliant last year. He's grown even more as a player. He's shown good maturity.
Yeah, I think he's overtaken who I've left out as Anton Leonard-Brown, who's, to be honest, suffered a little bit under Gatland's Chiefs. He was kind of a man frustrated. Gatland was trying to turn him into Jamie Roberts, and it didn't do him any favours.
Didn't do the Chiefs any favours either.
No, indeed.
He was definitely had a clunkier season. So on form, I think you do have to go Goodhue.
Yeah, and then 13 we obviously touched on already.
Rico Ioane. Bring that speed back to that jersey. And he's been distributing well as passing games come on, which isn't something you normally say about a winger come centre. Normally when guys switch in from the wing, they're a little soft on D. They're a little slack on their passing. Whereas Rico has distributed very well, and his D is brilliant because it's speed that he allows him to shut plays down. He's so quick off the mark.
Yeah, he's been super in Super Rugby Aotearoa, and I just think super impressed with Rico as well, because his career was tracking like we've seen so many times, in terms of he had this explosion onto the scene in an All Black jersey on the wing, where he scored all the most test tries in the year. I'm not sure if he won or was nominated for World Player of the Year, but he was one of the very, very best for 1 year. And then his form dipped, and other guys came in, and Sever Reece and George Bridge came in, and he lost his jersey, and he just wasn't quite the same, and he was kind of stuck in the mud. And we've seen that so many times. We've seen it with the likes of even Milner Scudder, although injury has really plagued that career. But even like Julian Savea, you go back further, like there's so many wingers who burst on flash of the pan, and then the next thing that happens when they lose their jerseys, they go off to Europe, they make their career there. Their time in the All Black jersey is done. Rico hasn't done that. He's completely changed his game. He's playing with more energy and more physicality than he ever had. Switched position to a much more difficult position, an outside centre, and has come out looking almost better than he ever has.
It's true.
So
I'm very excited for that
prospect.
Couldn't
be more excited. I think like if this works today on Sunday, it could be just an absolute. You got some of the most informed players in the world who could pack this team out. So I would be very, very excited to see Rico in the 13 shirt. And I'm very disappointed if that's what we don't see, but I think it will.
For sure. And then in your back three, again, myriad of options. You could go with, like, whichever one you pick, you'll have other people critical because you left out some guy. But I'll just rattle off. You've gone for Caleb Clark 11, Will Jordan debutant from the Crusaders at 14, and then Bowden Barrett at 15. Obviously, I said before. Well, for that's me, leaving out Sever Reece. It's leaving out George Bridge. It's leaving DMAC. I see you have DMAC and George Bridge on the bench, but there's like a lot of really tasty wingers who aren't in this squad who could be.
Yeah, well, the Sever Reece is missing, and so is Geordie Barrett.
Yeah,
those are sort of the main other two from the squad. It's sort of much of muchness, and it's sort of like what Ian Foster's seeing is as big a factor as anything. Ian Foster was saying in the build up to this that he was talking about the fact that COVID restrictions were preventing him from actually meeting these players until he called up his squad. So he's sort of been watching, from the wings. Exactly, without like really getting up close and getting to know these guys like Satutu and like Will Jordan and like Caleb Clark, who are going to be coming into the team. So that's an interesting dynamic. But Will Jordan's form is crazy.
Pretty undeniable. He keeps scoring tries. Full back wing, doesn't matter. He'll just come in and score a try off the bench. He does it anyway.
And Bowden Barrett, likewise. Bowden Barrett is key to this All Black team. He's key.
Caleb Clark is a good shout. He's been fantastic this year.
Yeah, well, that's the option, isn't it?
The option is you could drop Caleb Clark for Sever Reece
or George Bridge
or Geordie Barrett, and like you don't diminish the team that much for doing it. The wingers aren't necessarily game changing that way. They're just going to finish.
I just think mixing it up is crucial, and I think wing is the perfect spot to do it. And I think Caleb Clark has given no reason to suggest that he's not going to go in there and just be super physical and overwhelm the Wallabies and really torture them and score tries.
Finish anything he's given, which the All Blacks will try and create that platform to have those wingers roll over the try line.
Like Satutu.
On debut, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. Like Satutu, he's a young guy, but he's super physical and he has loads of great attributes, so you just wouldn't worry about the step up, especially in the game, no offence intended, with the Wallabies, a young Wallabies team. You don't expect him to be, tested so much that he's going to be completely out of his depth.
No, probably not. The replacements are kind of secondary there on your team, I guess. Well, like we still don't know. This is just the team that we would pick, I guess. Like you can do any other combinations, and they will. Like as we saw with the North-South game a few weeks back, they have at least 2 fully international caliber teams that are capable of being picked and playing. So there are all kinds of options. They're spoiled for choice. Whereas the Wallabies, who have named their squad also, and it's quite a broad squad, they're a bit thinner on resources. You were obviously citing at the top of the show that the average points per game and tries per game has increased for the All Blacks over the last 10 years plus. It's been
even the last World Cup cycle gone from 3 tries to 5
on average
per game conceded against the All Blacks.
That's a lot. So obviously Australia are starting from the ground up and trying to rebuild. But it's an interesting squad that they've named.
They put 16 debutants into a squad of, I think, 40 players originally. And that was a couple of months ago. But that's extremely exciting in and of itself. Dave Rennie, the new coach, he's another big question mark. I mean, he was brilliant back with the Chiefs.
Absolutely.
Way back when, he had a super team. They played excellent rugby. They were nice and aggressive, but also played a gorgeous style and really played to the strengths of the players that he had.
Then implemented that with Glasgow a bit as well, but they were a bit soft.
They had their moments, Dave Rennie's Glasgow. I never got the impression from Rennie that he was overly committed to the job. Every time I heard him speak about it, like it was very much a stopgap, and it was a 3-year stopgap. He was there long enough, but he never really built anything. I don't think long term with that team. He got them playing some decent rugby. They were already playing some decent rugby.
And under Gregor.
He certainly didn't disimprove them significantly, but he didn't overly improve them either. So he goes into this with that sort of being a sort of not a black mark, but not exactly a stellar.
But one thing I would
coaching
say
record.
is stylistically, his tempo and his try-seeking ways will suit the Australian mindset and the way they like to play the game as well. So I think it's a good fit potentially. Obviously, it's untested, same as the other tickets, so we don't know. We're looking for new talent, looking for boys to step up. In terms of because to be honest, even with Cheika was getting all kinds of flack. But I thought he overperformed, certainly in the previous World Cup, the 2011 World Cup, where he somehow got to the final. Like all of the factors that we were citing as far as Australian rugby, like the players aren't as good, there aren't as many coming through, the money they're losing, like all of that was true going into that, and he somehow managed to get them into the final. Then obviously this year just gone a quarter-final exit to England, who ended up being World Cup finalists. It's pretty impressive considering when you watch some of their Super Rugby teams and some of the guys who are in there, where like you're looking at guys who just really haven't been international caliber, who've been in there for too long. That's been the case. So it's exciting. We definitely do need to see young guys step up. We need to see a few debutants really perform for this Wallaby side to click at all.
And to be frank as well, like I've seen bits of Super Rugby AU, but I haven't seen the whole thing. I certainly wouldn't be as familiar as someone over in Australia with some of these young guys. So there's a lot of unknowns for me going into this. Like, can they make the step up? The bits of it that I have seen, the pace of it was noticeably slower. And the ball and play time was noticeably less than what was going on in Super Rugby Aotearoa, which would concern you.
It would.
Because the All Blacks have a brilliant team that's coming in steaming.
Yes.
I think the biggest questions is going to be, how do these young guys, are they going to get blown away physically, or are they going to make the step up? It's a huge day out for them, obviously. Can they play with the right, first of all, physicality and intensity to sort of not get blown away by what the All Blacks are going to bring, to chop their tackles, to make good plays.
The first quarter, very important. Even if the result may be secondary, by the way, they're away from home and it's a new team, they will pardon a loss, but if they get absolutely obliterated again, that's obviously alarm bells. You don't want that.
What I have here in terms of the team they're going to go with, there's a few different dynamics. The team that I took from a writer at Rugby Pass, because I'm looking at the team. Finn Morton reckons this will be the team. I have the squad here as well, and there's a few different dynamics. Obviously 10 is one of the more the bigger ones, and obviously 9 even as well. So what's supposedly going to be the Wallabies team, God knows, again it's up in the air. This guy doesn't even claim to know. But it's what he's gone for is Scott CO, who we know very well, at loose head, solid scrummager. Falau Faianga, who's never really delivered in the Wallaby jersey, but we live in hope.
Form dictates, get him in, hopefully, I guess.
Form dictates. Alan Alatoa, who's the incumbent there, who I would most certainly not select. I love Alan Alatoa's good, and it's great to have good scrummaging props back in Australia, and I think CO and Alatoa bring that. But I do think it's the time for Taniela Tupou. I'm actually very, very excited about Taniela Tupou. So they have him on the bench here. I'd love to see him start. In the locks, and this is where the Wallabies, you'd worry for them. They're pretty light at the locks. In their squad they've got Ned Hannigan, Trevor Hosea, Matt Phillip, Salakai Loto, and Rob Simmons.
That's weak.
It's very weak.
It's very weak.
First of all, Ned Hannigan is a converted 6. He's probably not physical enough to play lock at Test level.
Not physical enough to play 6 at Test level either.
Yeah.
He's been he was one glaring problem I saw in that's actually Salakai Loto as well was another problem for him at the World Cup last year. He was loose and soft when it comes to the top tier.
Matt Phillip is a good prospect. He's nice and physical. I think he's going in. Personally, I'd put Rob Simmons in there with him.
So would I. I was just thinking that he's the only really physical guy that I think could match what is going to be a very physical pack facing.
Yeah, and Trevor Jose is the other young guy who's another question mark in my mind. But they have him on the bench here, but I wouldn't mind seeing them stick Rob Simmons in. I think if it's Salakai Loto, he's got some work to do because he wasn't that impressive last year. So that's a bit of a depressing almost one for them. The back row is where it gets a bit more exciting. Michael Hooper named as captain. He's ever present.
Excellent,
always blamed but never the problem.
Yes, that's perpetually his fate with this Wallaby side.
So I'm happy to see him still in there. I think he's a great player.
Yeah.
He's going to be partnered by, they have here down Liam Wright and Pete Samu at number 8. Samu's incumbent. I think he can make the step up at number 8. I certainly
Samu is a very good player.
Writing his obituary, I think he's an excellent player. And Liam Wright, obviously, I think is the best of the other options. They do have a couple of 7s as well. Fraser McWright is another promising 7.
Right.
So I wouldn't be the most surprised in the world to see them go 7-7.
Yeah.
Especially given how Dave Rennie has coached in the past with a lot of turnover stuff.
Yes.
In terms of the back line, there's just oodles of question marks. The halves is the first.
Yeah, we don't know what they're going to do with their halves. They have Tate McDermott and James O'Connor here as starting 9 and 10. That's obviously an option. They do have other options. Jake Gordon's a decent scrummy.
I think
I'm not a huge Powell or White fan, although Nick White can be solid.
For me, Nick White is. I would start Nick White. I think Tate McDermott's exciting red scrum half. If they throw him in, great. But I think with a new 10, whatever they're doing, maybe James O'Connor's the widest call. They have 4 candidates for the 10 jersey, and it's been sort of all the headlines about what they're going to do as a 10. But I think to partner them, especially in this game where solidity is going to be important and non-looseness is going to be important. As much as I've criticised Nick White, I've criticised Nick White in the past,
and he was very, very good. He moved up north and was very influential at club level as well. He's a very solid player.
Yeah, so I think Nick White at 9, and then at 10 you've got the two sort of old candidates in Tamua and James O'Connor, both of whom have played most of their rugby not at 10, frankly, but both of them can play 10, and James O'Connor has played 10 this season. And then you have the two sort of young kids,
Lolasio and
Harrison. The Waratahs lad Harrison, and Lolasio. Sorry, yes, he's the young guy. They're both 20 years old, those young kids, and the lad Lolasio put on a clinic in the Super Rugby final and came back from injury, put on a clinic and won the Brumbies the Super Rugby final. He was named in the squad before he came back from injury.
So there you go. Was how high they rated him for sure. I'd be very excited about him. Less so about Harrison. I watched a bit of the Waratahs this season, and he looks a little like Bernard Foley.
Yeah, he's 20 years old as well.
I'm not damning him.
He's sort of the fourth out half in the squad, I would say.
He's there in a training capacity to get a bit of exposure, which is no harm as well for a new 10, but I doubt they'll go with him. O'Connor is what's listed here. They may go for that.
I think they probably will go for that.
James O'Connor's a wonderful footballer. Hopefully you can guide them. They'll need to be accurate as well.
Well, James O'Connor's attitude has been very impressive in recent years, and they do need an experienced head to lead them there. And the other option of Matt Tamua is not a guy that I've loved. I don't think that he's going to be a feature in this World Cup cycle. If he is going to be in the team, possibly at 12, it's going to be more of a stopgap, I'd say. Sure.
They do like their 10-12 distributing axis, and actually here they do have him listed as their 12 option, Tamua, with either Pataya or Reece Hodge at outside
Jordan
centre.
Pataya's a doubt because he has a hip flexor injury.
Yes, which is a shame because he's very exciting. He was very good. He was one who did break into the World Cup squad, looked very good whenever he played there. Didn't quite get the run out because James O'Connor was in the 13 jersey. He didn't quite get the run out in the quarterfinal that we could have seen. But sure, hey ho, he's here now and he's very young and exciting. But Reece Hodge is rock solid as well as a potential 13. And then the back 3 is, we obviously have Marika Korobetti, who you're not dropping.
No, he's still in there.
But the excitement you had over Reds winger. Was it Filippo
Daugunu, the Fijian lad? Probably butchered that pronunciation. Excuse me.
Daugunu.
He's had some highlight reel moments in Super Rugby, and it's just a very exciting young winger who I think they're going to give the 11 shirt to.
Yeah, and then fullback they have Tom Banks here.
Yeah, Tom Banks
could pick a few others, but
Tom Banks will start. Yeah. Solid again, decent kicking game. Even Reece Hodge in there, you wouldn't worry about. The other one I'd mention is Simone, the 12. I think he could come in and in fact I think long term you're looking at him in the 12 shirt possibly over Tamua. Regardless of what way they go this weekend.
And they have a few other outside backs who've been in and out. You have Jack Maddox and Haled Petty as well, who've been in and around the squad as well, a bit more experience, but I don't know, maybe you want to cut the kids loose a bit as well.
Jack Maddox is probably not quite on the level that he has been, but I wouldn't mind seeing him.
Wouldn't rule him out either. There's definitely room for these guys to play themselves into the team because obviously it's fresh. But those are the squads anyway, and the potential teams. I guess we move on to the actual game itself, and we had a look at what both teams broadly want to achieve from it looking in. But when you look into the actual fixture, how do they want to play? So the All Blacks, I suppose, will start with the home team. What do they want to do when they have the ball? How do they want to attack? We kind of addressed it a bit at the start. It's to be honest, they're usually about attacking space, and that's going to be here again. They love getting tempo on the ball, getting runners going forward, a bit of deception in their shape, but ultimately getting over the game.
They want to shock the Wallabies. They're gonna have some young guys in there, some guys making transitions like perhaps Rico into 13 shirt, and they're gonna want to be. They've been playing, I think, to a higher standard in Super Rugby Aotearoa.
I think that's unquestionably true.
So I think the opportunity is there to really drive a pace and just shock Australia in terms of just they're going to be playing at a different level and a different speed and with a different physicality to what they've been playing with all season, and they have the potential there to shock them. So I think early in the game especially, the All Blacks with the ball are going to be looking to move it. They're also going to be getting to look like, you've got Tui Pilatu in there, I've got Tuangafasi and Satutu, but even in their absence guys like Frizzell, Artie Savea, getting them around the corner and getting them over the gain line is going to be huge. If they can do that early doors, the game is going to be so easy for them. Rather than even having to make the space and create with their awesome backline, if they can win that initial collision battle with shock, like they have so many classy players, if they can really get on top of the Wallabies in that area and then move it wide into the hands of Moangas and Ricos and
the Moanga Barrett axis works well, but it's the first point of contact is Aaron Smith. As we said, we're picking Aaron Smith, and you have your pods of forwards outside, and they pioneered the tip on path. All their tight heads can do it. The little hold the ball, tip either inside, outside, out the back to Moanga. It's a simple shape, you know it's coming, but it's so hard to defend, especially when it's done accurately and at speed. And that's what they're going to try.
There's just quick, athletic, dangerous options on each of them. Exactly. So just driving that pace and getting over the gain line and hitting holes and then supporting each other well, I think it's just going to be a game of speed for the All Blacks with the ball. I think if they do that effectively, they could pull the Aussie D left and right. It's potentially a fractured young team, and there's going to be lots of scope, because all the All Blacks need is a little bit of room and the natural talent of Messrs Moanga, Goodhue, Rico, feckin' whoever they go with on the wing,
for sure,
Bodie as well. It's going to be too much. If they can fracture the line at all, it's going to be too much for Australia to deal with.
Well, they're going to they're going to want to have those support lines that they're so renowned for in place as well, so that when they do break the line, they can get the hands free, get the offloads. They have a lot of players who are skilled at that. They will obviously they'll want to punish loose kicks and cheap turnovers with tries. That's part of the All Blacks MO, and you'd hope to see them clinical and sharp on that. But more importantly, I think, given that it's a new team, they'll want to see that multi-phase work. They'll want to see them be able to string the 6, 7, 8 phases and then get outside them. That'll almost be more encouraging if they can break them down that way than just like if the Wallabies panic and kick it to them and they score a cheap try off it. Great, they're still the All Blacks, they'll do that all day. We don't quite learn anything about your systems when that happens.
The beautiful thing is at the top level they don't even need to coach that, because it's just instilled in them, indoctrinated in them from a young age, from grassroots. Every team, like, they're all on the same wavelength, and then you have the most talented guys in the most talented country all together on the pitch, they're all going to instinctually know how to execute, you know, a 4-on-3 in half a field of space if need be. That's just not even coachable. So that's, you know, that's a problem for Australia to not give them those chances. But if they get them, they'll take them. But as you say, what had stalled was the multi-phase, and what had happened was they were just playing a little bit slower and they were a little bit arrhythmic. And
so it's pick Aaron, try and get that tempo. And like the way they wanted to, like, even though they'll probably be a bigger pack, it doesn't behoove them to try and just, like a Northern Hemisphere side, just bludgeon their way over. They need to do it with speed and with width. Like, even if you're playing off 9, play 3 men out off 9, skip 3 lads to get to the edge of the defence and fold them that way. They will be looking to do that and bring a little bit more pace and attack onto the ball with their multi-phase.
And when you consider the power they have in that pack as well, if they're executing at pace, which we know and those
getting
guys
some
can
offloads
do,
in the tight, it could potentially be
danger
damaging.
written all over it from an Aussie point of view.
For sure. And then when they don't have the ball, the All Blacks defensive system kicks in as well. So they're going to have to try and contain this Wallaby side, which is in itself exciting. And even in their doldrum years, Australia have a really good collective mindset. Like you were saying, when the ball breaks, the All Blacks are brilliant at it, but the Wallabies are too. Sniffing a try out.
If you want to give them a try, they'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. If you present them with something, they will score it. However, they can be a bit loose too. So the All Blacks will be trying to come up off the line very aggressively first thing, bring line speed, put pressure on whoever they go with at 10, try and pressure this new system into making mistakes. And one of the tendencies we've seen in Super Rugby AU, and one of my least favourite habits of all seemingly across Australia, is that they'll make a line break and then the guy, before he reaches contact, will drop it on the toe and kick it away and waste it. And it's like that. It goes unpunished in Super Rugby AU, but you can't go to the Cape Town in New Zealand and expect to get away with kicking loosely like that. If you break the line, hold the pill, take the contact, set up a ruck, go again. Do not drop it on the toe and turf it. So the All Blacks will be trying to kind of present these odd pictures to them, because one of the things, if you're picking Barrett at fullback, he is, to my mind, the best at covering every blade of grass in that backfield.
No question.
And if you couple that with the Wallabies' instinct to try and kick it, you can paint some false pictures. You can have Bowden disguised over here. Maybe a young 10 or an inexperienced 10 will think that kick's on. It's not, because Bowden's going to be the first one to get there, and then you spring your counter-attack. So the All Blacks will try and kind of obviously smother them, but maybe deceive them a little bit with that too.
Yeah, there's a couple of huge jobs that they can do. Obviously, they're trying to generate turnover ball, and those false pictures are crucial as well. I think the breakdown battle is going to be massive. I think Australia, obviously Pete Samu, Michael Hooper, very solid, very good players. Michael Hooper has been one of the best in his time at the breakdown. But with guys like Artie and Sam Kane, who specialises in that area, like, I think they should be attacking the Wallabies in that area. I don't think they should be too worried about sort of fanning out, especially if they're winning contacts, which I think they should be able to do. Making their tackles, not giving up cheap meters. Then you can get guys like Sam Kane in attacking the pill. Artie Savia, one of the best in the world at stripping guys of the ball. He's so good at it on D. If he gets his hands on you, he can just rip that ball away like sort of an NFL play. Artie Savia has that skill down. So I think attacking the pill and contact and really just stifling and frustrating and terrifying
their rhythm and disrupting their ball, disrupt their rhythm, and they'll ultimately kick it to you, and then you'll have kick return tries. That's got to be the blueprint for All Black multi-phase defence.
And then obviously the reading of Rico from 13, which has been so good in Super Rugby, is going to be the key to shutting them down on the outside, and that's going to be a key battle. If he gets that wrong and lets them on the outside,
they isolate them and get out wide. They do have danger men out wide as well, and I think in the case of both wingers, like exciting wingers on both teams, they will win with the ball and probably lose without it. Like, I back them more as attackers than defenders. So then we move on anyway to the set piece, which is an interesting dynamic. We were talking a little bit about it with the selection of certain players. We have good scrummagers in Australia now. I'd expect what'll ultimately amount from it is probably parity. I don't expect either side to necessarily gain too much of an edge as far as milking penalties from scrum time. I don't know. Well, maybe I'm wrong on that.
I think if you're Dave Rennie, and I know Dave Rennie's instincts are to play sort of chaos rugby, and I like that in a lot of ways. But I also think the Wallabies need to be smart about where the All Black weaknesses are and where some of their strengths may have shifted to. Scotty Seo, Alan Alatoa, You know, if
Taniela
Tupou, but if James Slipper comes on at loosehead, obviously that changes
everything. Yeah,
because I don't think he's the best scrummager in the world. But I think Taniela Tupou in particular, Alalato is a brutal scrummager, and Tupou has all of this physicality and bulk, as well as a nice aggressive scrumming style, as well as a super ability in the loose. So I think I'm very excited about him, and I'd love to see him get on and have a niggle at Joe Moody. I mean, the All Blacks are going to be tough to get on top of. It may not happen. The All Blacks are very hefty.
The engine room is where I'm doubting that Australia. Like, however good those props are for Australia, I don't know about the drive. That's why I wouldn't mind seeing some strong guys in their second row too. Like if they're picking Salakai Loto there, it doesn't scrum powerfully.
It's definitely a dodgy one in terms of the engine room. So where they might try and have a niggle is really attacking Joe Moody. And while he's pretty decent for a loose head, but he doesn't tend to attack scrums. And can they shock him? Can Taniela Tupou in particular get on top of him? Drive him into the ground. Well, obviously you can't drive him into the ground, but shake up his bind enough that he presents the bad picture to the ref. I would love to see the Wallabies have a go on that. And then on the other end, in the line-out drive, I think that the Wallabies, it's been a crucial mainstay of the Brumbies for years. Ever since the All Blacks have lost Big Brody, they haven't been as solid at dealing with line-out mauls from a defensive point of view. They usually give penalties away. That's what they do. So I think
historically it's not a strength for them. They were shocked by it by the Springboks in the 90s and all of that. They don't love defending mauls. So try and paint that picture. Try and bring that physicality and organisation. Because Brumbies maul is a picturesque thing. When they get it right, it's very, very good. I think you're dead right.
I think they should absolutely be. Like, I think one of the things that we emphasise constantly on this show is the mistaken, missing game management moments. And from a Wallabies point of view, you know, if you get an early attempt at 3 points from sort of a little out, even a free 3-pointer, you're away in New Zealand and you need to score tries because these boys are coming. And if they're not clicking at the start of the game, you know they're going to be clicking at 60 minutes, so you need to take advantage of this. And that 3 points is not enough of an advantage, especially when you feel you can have a niggle with a line-out maul from 5. They should be attacking every try they can. You're not going to win this game 9-6. You know, the Wallabies need to be... I don't think they will be naive enough to think that, but it's a classic underdog move to take a couple of early 3-pointers and feel very pat themselves on the back and feel very happy about their opening 20 minutes with a 6-0 lead as the underdogs. And then click, especially against the All Blacks. It's gone. It's gone. Half time, it's over.
Whatever about underdogs, we saw the Springboks fall foul of that in the one game they lost in the World Cup. They went 6-0 up in a dominant first half display, and then bang bang.
It's not try because they'll just you need to play 80 minutes of perfect rugby to pull that off. Whereas if you're actually going for tries and getting them, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to outscore the All Blacks.
Yes, which is tough enough to do on itself.
So I think the set piece in that regard is going to be crucial for Australia.
Whereas for New Zealand, from their point of view, they will be looking for parity and then to launch off the top of lineouts, off the back of scrums. They have some very innovative moves. They have a history of being very incisive off those set pieces and starter plays. So I expect them to look to lock those set pieces down and then launch while the forwards are tied up, give their backs a chance to go one-on-one with their opposite men, obviously. And then the one little intrigue as well, restarts, the other set piece. I just had the note that both of these, the last competitive fixtures both of these teams played were against England, and on both occasions, in the quarter and the semi-final disappointments, they were schooled on restarts. Restarts were killing them. They were pinned back. They were exiting poorly, conceding attacking opportunities to England, and then ultimately conceding points. I wonder if they'll have learned from that. Will they have focused on it? Will they have cited it as a major weakness or a major flaw because of it? I don't know.
It's always a curiosity with the Wallabies as well, the restart, because especially under Cheika they did some goofy things. Like they had their whole team standing back on the 10, on their own 10, and then the out half just do a little flick up and then they start sprinting and they try and time it. They've kicked to try and recover. They usually try and... They're a great team for trying to gee themselves up in some way and win these little moments and do goofy things and pull them off and get pumped up over it. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them getting goofy off the restart and trying to recover it and trying to kick it just 10 or trying all kinds of cheeky plays. The more solid one that's conventionally done around World Rugby this year, the trend is certainly to kick it deep, let them set up an exit and then attack
from the ensuing
It's definitely the more... You know, it's definitely the more
percentage play these days.
Yeah, exactly, because there's just less can go wrong. So you would probably recommend it, but I wouldn't be surprised seeing the Wallabies trying some stuff off restarts possibly to their detriment.
Possibly, hopefully not. But then we'll switch to the Wallabies when they have the ball. What do they want to do with it? How are they going to attack this New Zealand team.
Yeah, well, this is the question from a Wallabies point of view. I mean, there's sort of a balance that has to be struck. There's a great piece in Rugby Pass by Ben Smith, one of their writers over there, which I enjoyed, and so I'll give him a shout out. It referenced Ireland, in fact, as well, in terms of how the difference between the teams that beat the All Blacks and the teams that don't, and why in all of this All Black stuttering, as we touched on in the start, they've never suffered in Bledisloe. They've never even been made to sweat, really, in Bledisloe games. Certainly the ones of consequence in the Rugby Championship. Yeah. They've just owned that fixture. And part of the reason is because the Wallabies have, when they've been using the ball, played the All Blacks into the game a little bit. Yeah. And that comes from, it sort of goes perhaps back to what you were talking about earlier with the loose kicks on line breaks. Yeah. But just lacking a bit of patience and trying to get around them instantly and trying to score quickly and trying to turn the tempo up to 11 and play the All Blacks in the basketball game. Yeah. Which, you know, these guys are the Lakers.
You're backing your skill set against the All Blacks, who are the more skillful team. It's a silly thing to do.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong to backing your skill set necessarily, but there has to be something done about being smart. And when you look at the teams that have beaten the All Blacks in the last sort of few years, one of the things that they've done is starved the All Blacks of what has been their biggest weapon, which is points in transition. Yeah. So that comes from loose kicking, bad knock-ons,
getting ripped, getting stripped,
all those things we were talking
getting isolated about, like and turned over,
Sam Caned, Artie Savid, or kicking it to their back three, or knocking it on, etc.
Yeah, well, that's the bad instinct. Bad instinct in Wallaby wingers, just dropping it on the toe.
The exact same. I think Ben Smith described it as sort of a Groundhog Day fixture, and it really has been. The games have taken the exact same shape, and the Wallabies, even when they're in it, on their very best days, everything comes off perfectly and they compete. Yeah. But otherwise, you know, you even notice like Reece Hodge will get into a bit of space, or Hale Petty, and he'll try and take the outside even though it's not quite there, just because he's being that aggressive Wallaby mentality. And they don't quite think about recovering the ball. All of a sudden he's away from his support, he's trapped, ball's turned over, All Blacks are back going, oh no, all of our team are over here, they've moved it to the other side, they scored a try, now we're restarting again. And that's how quickly it can snowball on you against the All Blacks, whereas teams like Ireland, when Ireland beat them, held the ball for ages and ages and ages and back themselves on phase play, and perhaps it's Ireland are another extreme where it's to their detriment that they never play rugby and they end up not scoring.
Even winning one try to none is there.
That's obviously a killer as well, but if you can dictate the pace of the game and just frustrate the All Blacks defence, what will be a fractured All Blacks defence, by not giving away the ball cheaply, by holding the ball. Even like if the pass is there, I don't hate throwing an offload. You know, they've got an exciting young Fijian winger in there. They've got an exciting young tens to come in. There's nothing wrong with the kids trying to show Dave Rennie something, but they have to be smart and not throw the 50-50s, not throw the Hail Marys, but instead just back themselves on their multi-phase to slowly drain away and pick away and catch the little struggling combinations, perhaps of Goodhue and Ioane or whoever they go with in the centre. Maybe there's miscommunications to be found, and keep attacking them. And the All Blacks get frustrated. They don't like defending.
No, they don't. I'd love to see that. I think it's unlikely, just given what we saw in rugby, Super Rugby AU, and just what has prevailed in Australia and Wallaby rugby is like they don't go through that many phases. They don't really like teams that do go through that many phases. They tend to kind of go moaning about it being ugly, and it's like as true as that is, I think what you're harking on is they just need to have that little more nous and back themselves in that way, back themselves to kind of retain the ball rather than back themselves in that one play, in that one moment. There's a try on every play if I pull off this miracle pass. It's like, possibly that's true, and it's a lovely philosophy to have, and it means that you will score tries.
It just turns out the try is for the All Blacks.
Yeah, exactly. There's more like they're playing the percentages that way.
I don't hate the Aussies playing rugby. In fact, they have to stay true to their roots and play rugby.
They do.
But they also are putting together, and if you're Dave Rennie and you're sitting in the hot seat and you're putting together a team to play the All Blacks, there has to be an understanding that frustrating them, and there's times, you know, you learn lessons from teams like Exeter as well, and like there's times when it actually hurts a team more when you take 10 minutes to score a try than if you just scored it on that first phase. There's sometimes when you can absolutely drain a defence, and the longer that you can keep the All Blacks defending, and the longer that you can keep them pinned back, the better and more important it'll be. The problem for the Wallabies, for me, I think they should attack that way, and I think hopefully they can limit their errors, and if they do all that, the potential winning picture starts to form, despite what we were saying earlier about how good this All Blacks players are. You know, holding the ball, frustrating them, managing the offensive breakdown. all of that's great.
And we'll also need, in that context, their forwards, their loose forwards, but also some of their tight five to really step up in a level that we haven't seen from them. Whoever they pick there, we haven't seen the level that they'll need to reach to win this game in that way. But they'll need to be dominating collision zones. They'll need to be shocking the All Blacks with their physicality.
Yeah, just being technical as well, like getting in, getting good body positions at the ruck, not entering from the wrong angles. And like we talk about the All Blacks being great, but one of the things that they do is give away penalties. And if the Wallabies can be the more disciplined side, that sets up the set piece, that sets up the potential try, that sets
gives
up
them
the
all the territory.
picture.
And like it's easier to play, it's easier to hold the ball when you're in the opposition 22 than when you're firing it across the halfway line speculatively.
The problem does arise when that doesn't start happening, and always in a game there's moments when that doesn't happen, when the All Black pack is getting on top of you, when your attack is stalled, when your first phase set piece move didn't work but you've still got the ball. And I think you're always in a difficult spot no matter where you're on the field if your plan is to give the All Blacks the ball from where you are. But that does sometimes happen. So in terms of when they're in their own 22 and they're just exiting, this is sort of why I pick that's why I'd pick Nick White mainly, is getting out of there, getting his good kicks, aiming for touch, chasing well, stopping the quick throw, not offering them an opportunity on counter-attack,
kick return, counter-attack, transition,
but also getting yourselves up the field and out of danger and resetting. When you're outside of the 22, it's a little dodgier. Like you have
speculative bomb is a play, but I don't love it. I'd sooner see the touch. If they pull them from side to side and doesn't go anywhere, surely there's space in the backfield for a corner pen finding one. If it finds grass, that's fine. Well, but if it's kicked straight down Bowden's throat.
No, exactly. The loose kicks are bad, and the bombs can go very wrong. And one of the things that the Wallabies have as a strength is a huge variety of potential kickers. You know, no matter who they pick. You know, you got Matt Tamua, he can definitely kick a ball. I wouldn't love giving him the Reece Hodge comes in, great boot. Tom Banks, super boot, and then James O'Connor as well. All have a good eye for it. So Nick absolutely, White, moving the ball around and forcing the wingers up and kicking it. To find touch, because Bowden will kill you if you don't. Kicking it in behind to find touch, that's the way their kicking game has to go. I can't emphasize enough, they have to limit the opportunities they give the All Blacks with ball in hand.
That's got to be key
on counter attack.
And then I suppose then when they're defending, much the same thing. It's a very tough job. Big day for Hooper and whoever's partnering him in the back row. They need to disrupt the All Black tempo, be that through dominant collisions or a Hooper over the ball when they have an opportunity. But they can't be silly, because the refs are focused on the thing. They can't go flying into the top. They can't go flopping over their feet. I would sooner see them designate Hooper and maybe one other, if they're going dual sevens, have those two be the guys, and everyone else fan out and stay on your feet. There are teams that do that way. I know getting your hands in and harrying is more like
one of the things that I would say is that the Dave Rennie Chiefs team at their very best, that was where they kind of made the name for themselves on defence. They were brutal at turnovers, and then they were, like the All Blacks, great on transition. The Chiefs were a great team, and there's no reason why the Wallabies couldn't be that way as well. A fractured line is a fractured line, no matter who's doing it. So I think that it's a potential opportunity creator for them, and it's also going to be vital that they don't give the All Blacks their own way. So yes, get in there. Don't be silly. Like, you don't want Michael Hooper flopping into dead breakdowns, as you say. You have to pick your moments, but you do want them, especially when they have the opportunity, just putting an arm in, attacking that pill in contact, constantly just threatening the turnover, and then slowing up the All Blacks, because as we said when we were talking about the All Blacks, their priority is tempo and rhythm, and they're going to be getting guys from all angles on the ball, perhaps over the gain line. You're going to need to have someone in there. You're going to need to have, whether they get the ball or not, slowing it up, frustrating it,
for sure.
Just disrupting the All Blacks' tempo is vital.
You do need you need that, obviously, but you'll need a cohesive line to be on their feet too. What I will really hate to see is if obviously the All Blacks are pulling them to and fro, if they're getting over the gain line, getting around them, getting behind them, and then in response the first guy to a dead breakdown is throwing his hand, if it's Salakai Loto or someone who's, it's not his job, but he's in there anyway, and then suddenly there's not enough people on the short side. It's just a dysfunction that you'd rather not see. I'd rather see them cede those meters, but get back in line and get up quickly together, like try and shut them down that way. And then in the contact zone, obviously it needs to be dominant collisions. If they're going to stop this All Blacks, they need to hit them.
Just good tackles. I'd even go so far as saying, like, you got guys like, you know, potentially Satutu, Artie Savia, Tuipulotu coming at you down your throat, these huge units. like, you need to be a bit Welsh about this. You need to be getting down, super aggressive chop tackling, and stopping them at source. You know, that's the kind of tackler you need. Good tackle technique is crucial here.
Yes, for sure.
Because you're not going to outmuscle them. You're not going to pick them up and drive them back.
Hips and down or lower if it's a bit more in space. But in the tight, I definitely think because they will, the All Blacks will be looking for the offload. Attack the pill with your arm as you're entering the contact zone. Attack the pill if it's in the tight. If you're the only man there, like, don't miss the tackle for the sake of swinging at the ball, obviously.
Yeah, no, I think the attacking the pill thing is for the second guy, and that's when you're talking about in the tight. The first guy needs to prioritise stopping the unit coming at him. Yeah. And that's, especially in the tight, if the All Blacks are going to try and gain yards in the tight areas, just chopping these guys is going to be vital. Yeah. But, you know, the All Blacks, they can move it wide as well. Like that, we said first priority for them was obviously dominating those tight areas. If the Wallabies can stop them there, they will just put in a little bit of simulation and move it straight to Mo'unga's hands, and they'll try to get you out wide that way, and the job does not get easier out there.
Well, if it's Reece Hodge or whoever it is in the 13 jersey, it's a mammoth task to try and shut down this team. We've seen Laitanio Am do it successfully for the Springboks, but he is a kind of a one of a kind unit of a defender and a reader of the game. You do need that 13 to be on, because it's such a fulcrum of a channel. It is where they transition from the narrow to the wide.
You think about what happens when Rico Ioane gets outside the Wallaby 13 channel.
Yeah, it's just
he's got Bowden Barrett running around, and he's got it's exactly.
Can't afford to let that happen. Yeah, so it needs to start in tighter to the ruck. They need to be driving them back, disrupting them. If 1 in every 3 contacts can be a dominant Wallaby hit, then they have a chance. Then it's a bit more time for the 13 to get up in the face of Rico, pressure the pass. You know, like
frankly, if the Wallabies don't have success inside the 10 channel in that forward pack on D, it's going to be an impossible task to shut down their backs
for sure.
So that is where they're going to need to front up. And as you say, if they do that, they will have a chance at disrupting what will be, you know, a fresh new All Blacks team that could make mistakes.
Sure, and if they're excited to please and just a bit more prone to throw the looser speculative offload, then be ready to pounce and get your own turnover try on the New Zealand. That would be the picture, because as you say, it's been a Groundhog Day fixture over the last few years, and the Wallabies are desperate to change that, and it will be a great way to start off the tenure of Dave Rennie if he can come to New Zealand and claim that scalp. That being said, they are the underdogs, so I'm leaning towards.
But what do you think? You think Groundhog Day?
I think Groundhog Day. I think the All Blacks are going to win 6 tries to 3, 2, maybe 2. About that.
I don't know. I don't know. The All Blacks have much better players. I'd be very surprised. I'd be very surprised to see the Wallabies cope. I fear for them. I think there is a winning picture out there. There's a win to be had in early season, but they're going to have to play so well, and they're going to have to limit their errors to such a degree, and they probably won't. They'll probably make errors, and that'll cost them. Whether we see anything from the All Blacks on multi-phases, that's another big question. But as far as the result is concerned, it just seems very unlikely that anything other than a dominant All Blacks win and Groundhog Day is the conclusion.
That's where I'm leaning. All right, but with hope that we see something anyway. A lot of new kids, new coaches. It's an exciting team, and there's exciting 2 teams. And international rugby is back.
Rugby is back.
The best thing about this game.
That accounts for our outrageously long but fun preview. I think about an hour long preview of that game. Well, international rugby returns, and so it deserves it.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, please like down below and subscribe for more videos. And please enter the comments section to join our conversation. Thanks.